think the deep sense of being an artist actually originated with my mother, and then it began to grow and fester. Most mothers, most parents, the last thing they want is their kids to be an artist. But my mother saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. She saw the ability to replicate. And I always say to people, I don't think that makes you an artist. That just makes, my visual acuity was very high. I could see things and I could replicate that. But she equated that with being an artist. And so she actually encouraged me. And even though I delved in different areas and I had strength in different areas, I always seemed to come back to the arts. There's been an ebb and flow with my work. Early on, in the early 80s, I was deeply into photorealism. I was very married to it. I thought that you couldn't be an artist unless it was photorealistic. And then I began to feel as if photorealism was empty. It was leaving me very empty. Yes, I could arrive at painting a painting that looked like a photograph. But then I thought to myself, it didn't speak beyond that. Well, so am I just a very skilled person who can replicate things? And so what I did was when I went to my graduate school, I actually chose a school of abstraction because there was a language that I wasn't familiar with. And so what I wanted to do, I wanted my work to be a lot more expressive and emotive. What it did do, it informed me how I could begin to open up the visual language I was creating, where before it was very narrow. It began to broaden. A colleague of mine once said that what I was dealing with was called the perspective of incongruity. He was in a different discipline, and I'm like, what does that mean? He says, what it means is you introduce something that in a very familiar way, but then you ever so slightly change it, therefore you change the meaning. And that's exactly what I was doing. So I think working in Wisconsin has informed my work in so many different ways, and it's challenged me to move beyond who I am and what I know to expand myself. Because of the winter, and I've never really experienced winter the way the winters are in Wisconsin, that I think what happened, it affected me. It created sort of minimalistic view of things. I began to reduce things down to their essence, where before I was trying to introduce too much and it was too expansive. It used to be all about me. It used to be very narcissistic. I only wanted to appease myself. Now the process, it's all about the work. It's nothing about me. I'm just a vehicle to see the work to its completion. And this work, to me, it's still talking about dealing with the male nude body as a subject, but I think the theme has changed a little bit in the past. It was about still trying to create this idealistic body that people could gravitate to. The last couple of years, I've been thinking more and more about the issue of or the construct of beauty, and I've really been interested in male beauty because most times people associate the construct of beauty with the feminine, and so I wanted to bring the masculine in. And I think for me, with that construct, it really empowers the work because what happens is people come to the work, but then when you introduce the construct of beauty, and people are all brought in by the construct of beauty, then people begin to come into the work, and hopefully once they're invited visually into the work, they begin to read through the work and then reinterpret the work. Because my work is not about a straight narrative, it's about being ambiguous and allowing people, empower the viewer to interpret the work on their own grounds. Even though I want to construct a language of an ambiguous language, I do see a lot of myself for the work. I think that I can't escape that. Not just because some people would say, well, of course he sees a lot of himself in the work because he is a black male and he's painting black males. But that's not, I mean, I think that's an easy assumption or conclusion to arrive at. But I think the reason why I see a lot of myself in the work, because for me, the work is about the spirituality. It's about the commonality, the human spirit. And so in saying that I feel like that's who I am as a person. I'm a human being, I'm a spiritual human being. And so for me, the work is grounded in that foundation because people read it differently. When they see two males laying side by side, they think it's about the sexual intimacy between one person and another. But for me, what the work is, it's about our own intimacy with ourselves, because that's why the bodies are very much alike. And so it's really not about, it's more about sensual, and if it is sexual, it's about how we treat ourselves, how we interpret our own bodies. And so that's why you have two bodies laying beside each other, because it's about that relationship. And then I wanted to introduce this very seductive nature of the cloth that they're laying on. I wanted this sensual. I wanted people to be brought into it and really begin to think about what they're seeing. So I'm not trying to create a spectacle where people are brought in by that. But what I'm hoping is that people will be, I hate to use the word again, but invited in, maybe seduced. That's a better word. People are seduced in. I want people to talk about the work. I want them to start looking at the work, but then start thinking about their own bodies and how they treat each other.